part of being customer obsessed and really being there is that your customers or partners and employees, because everybody plays a part here, trust that you say you're going to do what you're going to do. So maybe don't go big, bold, and crazy. It's sometimes just getting the foundational things right.
Welcome to Authentic Customer Voices, the podcast where we sit down with customer first leaders who are rethinking how authentic voices shape modern experiences and lasting growth. Today's guest is someone who blends heart, strategy, and community in everything she does. Jennifer Edwards is the VP of Customer Experience at Five9, where she's leading efforts to create meaningful, human-centered experiences for customers, partners, and employees. Beyond her leadership in tech, she's also the co-founder of the Community Art Collaborative, bringing creativity and healing to the communities that she serves. Jen, we are so excited to have you here today. I'd love to kick off with just a little bit about your story, your background, and what drives your work.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here. My work is driven by, a long time ago in my career, I started in sales, and there were a lot of times where I would have conversations around things that needed to be fixed and resolved for the customers. And then, of course, they were ready to certainly sign on the dotted line and buy more. So that was a recurring theme for me. And I found myself getting a lot of satisfaction out of resolving those challenges for them and supporting them in that way. And so naturally, I gravitated towards that. And over time, customer success and customer experience are something that grew out of SaaS, but truly really thinking about that. So that's where my basis comes from. In terms of my work outside of the job, I find that the nonprofit is something that just makes me a better leader. It builds creativity and thoughtfulness around the community. So again, it's always about connecting and building. So that's something that I've done throughout my career. And every day that I take a minute and go out and volunteer and work with my co-founder, Michelina, and build art many times with young people and artists across the community, I end up coming back in and applying that creativity in both leading my teams and serving my customers.
I love that. And I know that you talk a lot about creating experiences that matter. When it comes to customer voice, what does that mean to you both personally and professionally?
Authenticity is the most important thing that we can bring to the conversation, to the experience, whether that's in our business or our personal lives. We are each on a journey and we have something to offer, and we are building things in our personal and our professional lives. So when we're storytelling and when we're bringing those things forward, we want to really recognize both the people and then the brands they're serving. And then in the community, again, it goes back to the diversity of people and what we're trying to build together as a community. And I think that community actually, in terms of just what you see in your everyday life, is then also applied when great brands are building and learning from one another, because it's those authentic stories that so many times help someone else have that aha moment, right? You can see yourself in business, in the things that we build or the art that we're commenting on, that you can find common ground in. And so that's what we strive to do. And that's what I try to help my teams build and create.
I love that. Those aha moments are so inspirational.
They're so much fun too, right? I can't tell you the amount of times where, maybe we learn that we have customers who are DJs and, they love to adventure and go out and do crazy outdoor camping, not just normal camping where you're a campsite, but totally roughing it. And then the intersections where two people who are in two totally different industries come together and have this common ground around something as simple as making sourdough bread, right? But there's a lot of passion around sourdough bread. Apparently, I wasn't clear on that, but there's a lot. We have customers, we have
I feel like
leaders.
it came out of a COVID thing, I feel like.
It totally did. But I think that, again, relating on that human level, and then you can get into those very interesting conversations about what you're trying to solve on a business level. It just changes the way you interact with one another. And we believe that that is very important for creating those authentic stories.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, a lot of companies say that they are customer obsessed,
Mhm.
but candidly, I've been in this space for a long time, and oftentimes it does feel like they're missing the mark a little bit. Where do you think the biggest disconnect shows up between intention and execution when it comes to putting the customer at the center of everything that a business does?
It's such a good question. I think we potentially at times overshoot and go too big and too far too fast, and you don't take it in consistent bite-sized chunks where there's a lot of conversation about building trust. So part of being customer obsessed and really being there is that your customers or partners and employees, because everybody plays a part here, trust that you say you're going to do what you're going to do. So maybe don't go big, bold, and crazy. It's sometimes just getting the foundational things right. And I think that there is a lot of talk, and talk can be cheap. And so you need to be really thoughtful about what you're actually able to achieve and be consistent in achieving it. And when you are able to do that, then bit by bit, you build trust, you build advocacy, and you can build excitement because when you do go and say, we're going to do this, they, your teams and your customers and your partners are like, oh, yes, they are. They are going to do that because they trust that you delivered consistently for them. So that for me is what I would really encourage, and we're also in a time where everyone's like, oh my God, I got to capture this. It's going to be the biggest, craziest things. Well, does it? Or, could we just be simple, thoughtful, and consistent to start? So that for me is where I think they overshoot. We overshoot and we promise too much and we fall short in the delivery.
Absolutely. So on that note, then, and obviously your background spans marketing, customer experience, and nonprofit leadership, but how has that shaped the way that you think about not only listening to, but to your point, acting on customer feedback?
Yeah, I'm super action oriented, frankly. Like if you, I'm the, if you see something, say something. If something is said, then my particular, a set of leaders that I grew up with, um, if we say we're going to do something or we've committed to it, then we need to follow through. So, um, ownership is a big part of that, but also putting ownership in the right part of an organization where it belongs. Just because I hear something, I might have a responsibility to then take it and bring it to the right place, and someone who can care for that customer or that partner and answer it. And I come back to it and ensure that, you know, that loop has been closed. That for me is probably the biggest point of view. There are, it gets crazy and busy. You have so many conversations throughout the day, but I do try to be really mindful with my advisory boards, with our advocates, with my team members and like my partners and fellow employees. If we've committed to something, that we follow through on that. Again, big theme for me. I've said it a couple times in a couple of my answers, but it is, I also like to say the small things add up to the big things. A lot of times we really like need to just get the foundations right, and then you can move from there. And I think that's a really important point.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in your role at Five9, How are you bringing the voice of the customer into moments that go beyond, what a lot of companies do with surveys or C-stat scores? Can you give us some examples of how you're bringing customer voice to life?
Yes. So one of my favorites is something that Nikki Hall, our CMO, and my boss, she and I actually tomorrow, or actually next week, we will be out with a client where we go and experience a day in the life. So we're sitting with the contact center agents, talking with their contact center leaders. We're going to close the day out, talking with the leaders that will be joining us at our CX Summit and hearing from them about what it is they want in terms of their experience. So Nikki will then in turn kind of take all her insights. We will play that back into our executives. We will weave it into our like ads and how we're thinking about things. We will also then take it back into our, strategy teams and put the customer the customer voice into that. So I think it's done in an interesting way. And then, of course, we have a champion program where we bring them in to advise the product teams and they give direct feedback and direct input. We test a lot of messaging with the advisory board and things like that. So we spend a lot of time really trying to get that firsthand input while being mindful of like it's in 20-minute increments, and if you can make it, and giving everybody the love and spreading it around. The customers and the partners really appreciate that though, and I think that's something that I learned a long time ago. You get much better results by threading their input throughout, and that can be in both structured data or the conversations that you have. It's always, you get so many aha moments from things like that.
I love it. And since you mentioned data, I'd love to shift and talk a little bit about measurement. What signals do you look for to know that your customer experience work is creating real impact?
Yeah. So we track the number of champions that come into our program and take us up on that. We also look at who chooses to advocate and speak out loud publicly for us. That's something that we measure very consistently, right? So not, and then of course you have renewals and everything else, but like you look at like a plethora of kind of like a set of engagement indicators. And I personally, coming out of a customer success background as well, I'm always happier when someone, it's just going to sound crazy, is pointing their finger at me and not happy, but they're talking to me. Right? It's when you do not have engagement that we start to get concerned. So, like, they're not returning calls, they're not showing up and engaging, then you're in trouble. If you're having challenging conversations and moving the relationship to a stronger place, if you are seeing them advocate and have a willingness to speak out loud, that could be speaking, it could be, public relations, it might be that they are a champion or that they're commenting in the community and things like that. And we're talking very much in a B2B orientation here. Then for me, that is what healthy looks like. Many times you can then take that and align it, and you start to see a correlation between like maintaining or growing both, the expenditure and the lifetime value that the customer brings. And it's a good thing. It has to be a mutually beneficial thing for both the customer on a brand level and on a personal level and Five9. So that's how we look at it and measure it.
Spot on. What is maybe one way you're thinking differently about customer voice now than maybe you were 5 years ago or even just a year ago at this point?
Yeah. I mean, 5 years ago, right? Everybody in their MPS, right? I think that NPS, the first part of the question, can be used in very interesting ways to ask much more relevant information. In a B2B scenario, how likely are you to recommend? That's kind of nice, but how likely are you to renew? How likely are you to expand your business? How likely are you to, contract your business? things like that. I think there are different questions and ways to engage that we maybe were like, I mean, that's been used and used and used. I'd love to see it be retired or asked in a different way. I think, you know, there's just other ways to go about that and gather the insights. Certainly, like you think about, of course, AI, things like that, where you're, picking up on sentiment and everything else and doing more to be proactive around that is another way to think about that as well. Those are two points that really like stick out for me, right? I'd love if NPS could go away. I'd be happy with it, frankly, in a B2B situation. I think there are better questions to ask. And then I like the idea of really understanding, and where I think AI can be very helpful is like ingesting that in and understanding those trends and helping segment and think about like what are the conversations you should be having next, so that they're not creepy, they're thoughtful engagements and empowering the team members to use that in the right way. Those are the things that we're thinking about now.
I love those. I love those. Last question for you, Jen. As we're looking ahead, what is your bold hope for how businesses listen and amplify the voices of their customers over the next few years?
My bold hope is that we're like less invasive about it and more intuitive in capturing. I'm going to go back to what we started with, the authentic voice of the people that are running these businesses and how it shows up and what they're doing to further, their business being successful, them being successful as leaders, and really seeing like the human aspect while we are leveraging technology in a really thoughtful manner.
I love that answer, Jen. Thank you again so much for joining us today on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was so great to be here. I really enjoyed this. Thanks for having me.
To our audience, we hope you found this conversation valuable. Follow along for more episodes with leaders shaping the future of customer-led growth. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.